G'day, folks. Anthony Kilner here from Supernal Magazine, Australia, and we have got another amazing show for you to watch, listen to, and check out. It's all around our Tartarian or Journey into Tartaria issue, which is issue 60, which will be out fairly soon, if it's not already by the time you get to watch this, and it probably will be. So www.supernalmagazineaustralia.com.au. Check us out, subscribe, it's free, and you get to see the current issue every 2 months, and you get an email to let you know that the new issue's out. That's pretty much about it. So joining me today on the show is Freya, all the way from WA. Good morning, Freya. How are you?
Grand Risings, Anthony. I'm fantastic, thank you.
Yeah.
Always happy to be here.
Yeah, well, it's always good to see you from the other side of the world, so to speak. Our special guest today is Kelly Jones from Tartaria Australia and Truth Seekers and a whole lot of other stuff. We were going to have her partner in crime, Campbell, joining us. Unfortunately, he's not so well, so we wish him all the best. Welcome, Kelly, and thanks for joining us here.
Thanks, guys. It's my pleasure, my honor. Let's
Yes,
go.
I'm looking forward to this issue's been a very eye-opening issue for me in a way, because I didn't really get into Tartaria until a few years ago and understanding it. So this issue itself, with the major feature that Freya's put together, and some of our other writers have put information together about, but really exciting to talk to somebody that's been involved in it so pretty much from the beginning. So thanks again for joining us, and I guess we should just jump into it.
Let's go.
Love being a part of the things that you do. So I suppose I've watched hundreds of hours of information on Tartaria and, been a seeker in that regard myself my whole life. But still, a lot of people I talk to don't have a clue what Tartaria is. I just had a conversation with my former neighbour last night. And I was like, have you heard of Tartaria? And she's like, no, what's that? I'm
Yeah.
like, well, so it's this, we're still pulling people across into that new, well, not so new now, 20 years old paradigm of information. Plus, I really love the work that you guys did on the whole water side of things. And, when we were in the solstice event, I was like, oh, this is good stuff. This
Yeah.
is really good stuff.
Yeah. The water topic's taken me in some remarkable directions. That all started because I just asked the question about, what is the internet and where did it start? That's how the whole water topic came about. And ever since then, I have just gone on and on and on and on and on, asking new questions, I guess, and aligning everything we've ever looked at the truth community back to the oceans and water. And gosh, it makes so much more sense. It just strips all the stories away, and I've been moving in this new direction, I guess, a little bit further away from where we started with Tartaria, which is around the topic. And I think I've coined this sort of new version of where it's going, which is from truth seeker to earth seeker.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I like that.
Yeah, because the topic of water has led me personally into asking a whole new set of questions, which is phenomenal. And mainly along the line of understanding that once you get through the Tartaria information, and Tartaria was fantastic, because it was so tangible. It was like, if you've been in the truth community for a long time, like myself and many, so many of the concepts are just so lofty. No one's ever met a reptilian or a fallen angel. There's edges in every direction. You can't find evidence. We only have to go back such a short amount and then we can't evidence it, So there's a lot of loftiness, a lot of storytelling, and a lot of filling in the dots and relying on, random people to say, this is what's happening and la la la. But Tartaria was so cool because it was physical. It was so physical. You could go and touch it and lick it if you wanted to. It was like right there in our faces. It was like it was like unveiling something that'd been there the whole time, but we hadn't had the eyes to see it. So it was really remarkable. And also it makes up, all the cities that we love to travel to as part of tourism. So it was like, kind of like the whole world took on a whole new version of events, and it was really magical, you know.
Makes so much sense, like how you not just being able to touch it, but it's like when we go to those places, like the feelings.
Yeah,
So
let's do it.
so Kelly, your favorite topic really is the water theory then, and going on to the earth.
Look, I've been in the truth movement since I was about 23. And so I'm like almost 50 now. So it's been a long
too.
journey of, and I've been in this really unique position to be an observer of it, really, because I've been so involved in it. And I've watched it and all of its like ebbs and flows, and, you know, the bodies of information coming out, and then the next body and the next body. And Tartaria sort of, I guess it kind of like exploded a bit around kind of like 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. And TA started up 6 years ago, right on the cusp of that, right in the middle, well, right at the beginning of COVID. As I was living in Melbourne, and, you know, the whole city was shut down and locked up, and it was just me and the Chinese in the city, you know, and everyone was in quarantine and couldn't even leave. But I, ignoring all of those regulations, would walk through the city, and suddenly, you know, this whole new unveiling, which we call Tartaria, occurred. And I got to really, you know, privileged position of having the whole city to myself, basically. And then from then, obviously, Campbell and we've deep dived on the topic of Tartaria from every possible angle you can imagine, and with a big, hearty amount of my imagination, you know, like, which, you know, intuitively just leads you into new questions, and then, you know, new bits of information sort of line up to be able to evidence that and make more sense of it. And so we started, I guess Campbell started with star thoughts. That was his first question, you know, this concept of star thoughts, which in itself was a remarkable unveiling, because suddenly anyone who was interested could actually see thousands of these star thoughts, which had been there the whole time, but we'd never actually, like, you know, noticed them or searched for them or even given them a name, you know. So the beginning of Tartaria was all about finding narrative and language for things that we'd never given language to before. And isn't that a beautiful thing? Because, you know, we're always told that, like, language is spells. So Tartaria was like a really amazing example of a lot of those spells being broken. And as a result, our reality and perception, like, getting broader, right?
Yeah.
So Tartaria always represented to me, like, you know, a shift in resonance. And I guess if you talk about the flat earth and round earth concept, where I would put the round earth model is in a lower density. I believe that it exists. I just think it's at a lower resonance. And the reason I say that is because with the space, the round earth model, it's finite. Everything's finite about it. The resources are finite, the space is finite, the model of it's finite. You know, you're like, literally you're floating around in this space you can never access. It's all very finite. But then when you kind of shift your resonance up, you know, in accordance, the density of your reality will shift as well. And to my eyes now, flat earth is just a shift in density, a physical representation of a shift in the resonance. Because from a flat earth model, it's more broader, right?
And it makes perfect sense because, well, take cymatics, for example. If people aren't familiar with it, there's great videos all over the internet with of cymatics. But as the frequency goes up, the geometry changes and it becomes more and more complex. And the more complex it becomes, so if you take that from a flat plane on the sand plate that you'd see them on, it's going to transform in 3 dimensions into something that is more and more beautiful. But what happens is, even in a person's personal trajectory, and I mean, you might have gone through this, Kelly, when you shift in consciousness, relationships change. They fall away, all different ones come in. Your physical surroundings change. You might move house, you might, you know, move country, you might change jobs, all sorts of different things are going to happen. And so it makes perfect sense that as, you know, our frequency changes, it means our aura or soul's geometry is going to change and become more, vibrate at a higher frequency, but then we've got to hold it there and not drop it back down and keep ascending. So it's this huge, it's a huge process, you know, so it makes perfect sense that, you know, the paradigms of what's possible in the Earth's frequency as it changes along with us, or we change along with it.
Yep.
But interesting, because we've also then talking about parallel realities on the same globe slash flat earth slash geometry, or whatever you're perceiving it as, is all happening together at the same time. Yeah,
We've literally lived
fascinating.
through 2 earth changes so far.
Yeah.
For the earth to go from round to flat, that's an earth change. And
Yeah.
and the flat earth is more expansive, more questions, broader resources, broader terror. It's all about it. It's way more expansive. But now the new direction that I'm heading in is basically going to put us in a sphere again, because like, just like a pulse, like if you imagine a pulse, I see it's like pulses out round, then it flattens out, pulses out round, then it flattens out, because my next body of work is along the lines of True Seeker to Earth Seeker, because I feel like the True Seeker model has now it's hit its ceiling. Like, it's basically very repetitive now, and there's a lot of noise there, there's a lot of stories, and there's a lot of content that's not even human anymore. Like, so to me, it's hit a ceiling. So there's a next level of new questions, and to me, it's about the earth, because what I've realized with Tartaria is that we as a collective humanity went through a great forgetting. Now, in the Tartarian language, we'd call that the reset. But from the water language, we would call that a result of being flooded with salt water. Now, if I start to then look at the connections between all the stories from the flood onwards, because we can all agree on that. There's a lot of evidence that we went through a flood. When and how, but we don't know, but we can agree on that. And so then if you look at, like, so what would have been the impact of salt water flooding our realm? Could that have killed the giant trees, for example, if I earthed that concept? So then I was like, I'm going to go through the truth community and earth everything. Like, if I take away all the stories of all the aliens and all the galactic federations and all of the, prison planet concepts and reptilian concepts and all this shit that makes us feel completely depleted, hopeless, and tiny, and remove all of that, and earth everything I've ever integrated with the truth community back to earth, because the earth is our power source. We are alive and vibrate from the energy of the earth. That's the charge that runs through us. That's a fact. The truth community, from the day I started when I was 24, introduced me to reptilians, the reptilian agenda, that we're in a prison planet, that we're enslaved, that there's always higher dimensional energy that's so much more advanced than us, that we're just victims to all this, and eventually through that whole process to the idea that we're in a simulation. And I can't think of anything worse as a concept, that we are in something that doesn't even exist. And so then I'm like, but yet here I am, thriving with life, thriving with the power source. So I am thriving with a power source of charge that's come from the earth. So to me, the greatest question that I've started asking is, where do I belong? And I think at the end of the day, every true seeker who's ever come into this reality and looked for answers, they've all come up with the same seeking of the same question: where do I belong? And now I feel that the truth community has done a massive disservice to answering that question, because it sent you off into space in a completely disempowered position where you don't even belong to your own power charge. You don't even belong to the earth. You don't even call yourself an earthling.
I agree with you 100%, because, there's, we've lost, blessings to David Wilcock, because, he became, from what I can see and hear from people, is he became quite ungrounded. And, that's a current thing that we're looking at. And people go through, as they shift, they can do what the ancients might call a Kundalini awakening. And what comes with that, as far as I'm aware, is when that huge surge comes from source and through the earth, then everything is amplified. And we're going through multiple of those. So it's not just the positives that are amplified, it's the negatives. And unless you ground, how can you be an earthling if you don't have if you're not plugged in You
Exactly.
can't connect, you won't survive.
Exactly.
You'll be gone, you know.
Exactly.
It's happened, you know, there's countless stories of that happening to people. And so I 100% agree with you that you know, we need to come back to the very basics of putting our feet on the earth, putting our hands in the earth, getting to know the earth, because that is the source of life. And
Yep.
also to say that um, with the salt water, I just want to come back to that. And, you know, it's a very interesting thing about, you know, we got watered, so salt watered. That's interesting. So,
Mm.
you know, I've heard lots of theories about where the salt water came from, including from the Dracos and so on and so forth through Alex Collier, um, and others. However, I would say think about when we go to the beach, you know. When we go to the beach, we get in the water and we come out, and if we're not feeling great, we feel better.
Mm.
It washes stuff away. It does wash the negative away. So we come down fully positively charged. We get in the ocean and we become negatively charged and we feel positive.
Yep.
But what also comes with that is, as you say, some kind of not just a memory loss, but a shift in perspective. You know, so salt water has a huge impact upon a human being's or an earthling's energy field and resonance, and that's happening to the earth as well. You know,
It's an
so what
interesting
do
one.
we remember? Don't we remember?
So,
Yeah.
I mean,
I want
so,
to take you back a sec because you're talking about earthing, right? So one of the things that the COVID jab has done that I've worked on energetically is reduce the size of the connection back into Earth. And so
Mm,
this is something that was shown to me with my team in Spirit working on energetics. And where that's been interesting and proven on multiple cases is, and this is a bit of a tough topic, it basically increase suicides,
mm,
increase illness, uh, disconnection. So in effect, the way I talk about not being grounded properly is you become a zombie in your own reality. And that
mm,
is you're disconnected from the earth, even if it's, say, by 60%, and it's more depending on how many jabs you have. And there's a way to measure that. And so that I find really interesting because people aren't grounded anymore
yeah.
because every jab they have drives them more and more to disconnect
Mm,
from the earth. And if we're
yeah.
disconnected from the earth, we're disconnected from the global consciousness that is the connection to everything. And so, yeah, just sort of going back
and
to waiting for people to
I,
understand.
I would add to that, Anthony. You know, I 100% agree with you. You know, through my own work with helping people energetically. The other thing I would say is that not only they become ungrounded, there's sort of like a real solar plexus centric consciousness that comes, and the effect of social media, I've noticed,
Yeah.
particularly since we came through that, is to normalize a level of narcissism. It's normalized,
Mm.
you
Which
know.
is service to self. Service to
Yeah,
self. Hmm.
yeah. It's
Mm.
so, you know, it you know, at the risk of showing my age, but when we were, you know, Kelly, you and I are about the same age. So
Mm.
when we were younger and we went into the shops, you know, you'd have a real conversation. I mean, I even remember when I was a kid, you know, there was the service stations, people actually gave you
Yeah,
service. There
sure.
was, you know, people knew what they were talking about. They actually had the knowledge.
Yeah.
And the way things have moved is to disconnect, disassociate, give limited information, provide no service. And
Mm.
this is across the board, and
Mm.
create this real, yeah, self-serving, narcissistic, competitive, separatist, lack consciousness society. And it's not to say that there isn't amazing people and you have incredible connections and they come and, you know, everything, when you're in the flow, everything you need is provided. The right person shows up at the right time with the right information to do the thing. Yes, right? When you're actually connected. But we have these really, really clear contrasts that of a like that we've not experienced on Earth in, not in this lifetime.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, like, if you think about it, what is actually happening is those vaccines are rewiring your connection to the charge. So, like, it's very interesting. Like, the Earth emits a charge and it's relational. That's one thing we look at the show a lot about. So, whereas which is living, it's a living relational experience, and it uses light, real light, and it uses life force, and it's alive. And then you've got the opposite to that, the artificial light, which is electricity, and the artificial charge, which is service to self, and it's binary. It's binary code, right? So it's black or white, yes or no. Do this, don't. It's command code. Whereas the relationship with nature is always relational. Trees grow to a certain height because it's in relation with the other trees around it, or it's in relation with the
geometry.
roots. Yeah, so you've got this like two different charges in operation, and the greatest work with the water, it has taken us through the story of that invasion. Where has it come from? Because electricity comes from the depths of our ocean. So that's another interesting link. The deeper you go, the darker it goes. It forms artificial light, which is electrical. The creature gets more electrical. You go through all the mythology around all the gods of Poseidon and Zeus, all of those, they always carry electrical weapons. And when you look at the beginning of the Abrahamic religions and the technology that was brought forth, it was the Ark of the Covenant, which was electrical in nature. So there's always, and God was always known with this smokeless fire, this electricity. So the charge that has taken over the world that feels so false to us is binary code, and it's electricity, it's electrical. So one of the things we chase in the show is looking at, when did technology come about on this realm historically, and when was it all innovated? Because it all led us towards electricity. From the beginning of the Abrahamic religions, we moved powerfully towards electricity. And what was inspiring that? Because that starts to talk about the water series and the invading series. And I would just go back for a second and address with the ocean. The thing is that the humans feel very charged in the ocean, right? But they only feel charged in the first 3 meters. Where the ocean, the salt water is mixing with light, natural light, sunlight, and it charges that water, and we feel good in it. But you go 5 meters out or 5 meters deep, and you're going to start feeling apprehension, fear, and stress. It's not a relaxing experience you're going to have after that. It's going to be a worryful experience. Like, we as humans live happily in the first 3 meters of water. That is the ocean. That's our beaches. That's our coastline. That's where we go to holiday and recharge. That's where surfers are, right? And they look
most humans, yeah.
But you go out a few more meters, a few deeper, and you're going to be like, oh my God, what's underneath me? Because it's a natural apprehension around the dark. Because if you look at water, and particularly salt water, because we live in a fresh water realm, we are immersed in living water. Living water is what we are. Living water. And so where did salt water come from? All these questions. And from our explanation, salt water is basically, there's 2 streams of water in this world. One is living water, and one is salt water. And that salt water has come from the underworld, the underground, the depths of the ocean. When you talk about the rapture, it was probably a rupture. Something occurred that flooded the realm. We know it flooded because there's lots of civilizations under the water that flooded out. Many Indigenous stories, songline stories where they still remember land, that's now underwater, sung in the songlines.
And we can see it. There's evidence of that,
Yeah. And so we've got this connection between these 2 charges at war. One charge is artificial and electrical. One charge is relational and living. And we as humans embody the living. And
what's interesting too is that the way that the Earth is being managed at the moment is to dam the fresh water.
Oh yeah.
It's to siphon it off and irrigate it.
Absolutely.
It's to shut it down and put security cameras around it, so that you can't actually access those places.
100%.
Even things like the national parks being shut down.
Yeah.
being turned into UNESCO heritage sites.
Yeah, we go into that so deep in the show because they all sit on the song lines, right? Those parts that have been shut. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not, and I don't, and having done a lot of work with the Indigenous people of this continent, the many countries of their lands, I would say it's not. I have been to places where I've seen, people who are in a different frequency have come and they have damaged things. Right, that happens. I also know that in my own journey, you can walk on land and not see things because you're not in the right frequency. As soon as you shift frequency and you're actually connecting with the earth and you're asking the ancestors in the land, you'll be shown. Mm-hmm. And the most extraordinary things will happen with animals and plants and everything. Like, it's next level amazing. I love
next level.
Planet.
I know.
However, we do need to protect things. I'm not saying we don't need to take care of things, but the way that we're going about it is so fear-driven. That's where that exacerbates the disconnection from self. Every time we lock something down, and disconnect it. And is that, the question for me is, if we're all on this planet, right, whatever shape it is, and say there's, okay, we won't get into how many billions of people are on the planet bit right now, but however many people there are, there's a collective consciousness. Now, the more people that are awake and who are evolving in consciousness and are taking ownership and responsibility for their thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, the more self-determination there is, the more oneness, the more, we're able to drive that. But then there's a collective that are not, and they're being driven by the unconscious because they're not conscious. And from all of the work I've looked at, and the healing modalities and so on and so forth, would say, this much of us is consciousness, like our actual conscious awareness. And then there's a whole lot of subconscious, and we don't know what's in that. We don't know what fears are there. We don't know what past life stuff. We don't know what past traumas of the earth, et cetera, is driving us. So what is it? Is it that's driving these shifts to govern the mind, to, lock down these places, to fear power, to fear the power of the people? What is actually going on at another level there?
Well, I mean, from my mind, you've got two charges at play, and the greater charge is in charge. So the service to self charge, the electrical charge, which has dominated the realm for the last 200 years, is been the one in charge. So all of the beings that make all the decisions and lead this world in that way have been charged by this electrical charge, and they are the ones pushing for artificial intelligence so strongly, right? Which is essentially us talking to the dead. I mean, if you want to look at AI, that's what it is. We're talking to the dead because electricity comes from the underworld. The great forgetting has come from the waters of the underworld. That's literally in all of the mythology that if you go back long enough, you will discover the mythology that there's two streams of water. One creates great mass forgetfulness, and one creates articulated and acute memory. And actually, if one wants to break down the word, I didn't know this until recently, but of course it makes some. If you break down the word memory, do you know what it means when it's broken down in its ancient Hebrew?
I'd love to hear this. Go on.
Yeah, mem equals water, and ori equals light. So memory in its original word is water light. That's the living waters. But salt water is from the realm of the underworld, the dead, and it is about forgetfulness, crossing the bridge of Hades, the river towards Hades, where you forget. And so there's been a mass reset. And you can imagine, like, if there's a mass reset, a mass forgetfulness, one of the results of that mass forgetfulness is if you are an aquatic being that has arisen in this moment out of that underworld ocean, you can easily not be affected by the great forgetfulness and manipulate using so and humans are pretty simple. Like we learn through repetition. Our brains are geared towards repetition. So as long as they're in control of the psychology of repetition, and this is where we get the mass media, all the stuff that we all know about now. It's all founded on the psychology of repetition. That's how we learn. So it's very easy to manipulate the human being. So you've got.
Yeah, sorry. So in the ancient Hindu texts, they're the only culture that talk about chakras, and there's no other culture that has a word for that. We'd have to call them vortices, energy centers, whatever. They speak to that realm that you're speaking of, that you cross, the river of forgetfulness. Now that culture's old as far as we can tell. So that has been, from what I can see, has been going on for a lot longer than a couple of 100 years. I'm not saying that there hasn't been a major shift in the last couple of 100 years, in terms of who's the electrical charge and who's got hold of what and who's driving what. But that is a thing, like even Pythagoras. Now, there's an author who started the sacred geometry movement like years back called Robert Lawler. He's passed now. I knew him personally, and we spoke to that. And he said that, he said that Pythagoras had a whole mystery school associated with being able to get in and out of their body consciously, that at the upper levels of his work, that was what it was actually about. So it seems that humanity has been on that track for a long time, to be able to try and get home to light, come back, be of service, or, and reincarnate. And I know that there's a whole reincarnation trap. But there is also, from the shamanic work that I've done for years and years and years, which is not me telling someone what they're experiencing. It's their cellular memory connecting with the charge of the earth through crystalline work. It connects them to their own cellular memory as well as the memories of the earth. And they bring forth the information without being told, oh, I see this, that, and the other. Now, people are coming out with information about Atlantis, which, Tartaria, a huge myriad of things that come, entities, etc., etc. So, and they're having to clear past life stuff, but they're also going forward into future lives to clear up their trajectory, to improve whatever situation they're personally going through. So people, in my experience from that perspective, do not remember. They couldn't remember everything, because if they came in remembering everything, their brains are, they can't communicate with the parents because they're not telepathing. There's so many issues, right? But when but people stay in touch with the spirit world as they're young, but often they don't have parents that can fully guide that very well. Then maybe they suppress that, then maybe it comes back. But there are these many factors to a human experience in terms of navigating the subtle dimensions. And I would say that, these are not prompted. It's not like you're going to go in and you're going to experience X, Y, Z in these sessions. So it's not everyone, right? Some people have very mundane things that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And some people have very, very extraordinary experiences that blow your mind, my mind, incredible. So we've got this situation where there is a pathway of, as you say, you've got to traverse the underworld. How long has that been there? Has it always been there? Or is it that in itself, that dimension has become hijacked?
I mean, I guess from my perspective, like I came through this journey via Tartaria. So one of the obviously the biggest starting points with Tartaria is that we've been reset. That there was a time in history not too long ago, 300 years ago, where everything was reset, and we were, and
I
there's
agree.
yeah. So I guess I'm speaking from that perspective that there was, and so I would now flip the word from reset to a great forgetfulness.
Yeah,
And I believe it was timed with the arrival of the salt water through the flood. I think that was a timed and correlating event, the impact of that. I think there's always been a shamanic, intuitive relationship with the underworld because that's the balance, because nature has a relationship with life and death, because that's the relational nature we have with the cycles of our life force. So I think that that's always been present, and to the point now where I think the relationship with the aquatic beings is the same. Back in the time before this rupture, before this event occurred that threw everything out of balance, and a new charge took control, which is the electrical charge from the underworld, took control of the Earth's charge. I would say that we had a very well-versed, very balanced relationship with the aquatic beings of this realm. Because if you go back way past Abrahamic religions into the cultures before then, they have so much reference to fish gods. All their gods were fish gods. And so one has to, consider the idea that we had a relational experience with the terrestrials and the aquatic beings, that we weren't in fear of each other. We were in compassion towards each other and empathetically relating to each other. We were in relationship and it was in harmony, and something's thrown that out of harmony. And so that also comes around internally to us, with the disharmony we feel between our relationship between life and death and the underworld and past lives and future lives and all of those things that go on there with our personal, processes and healing. And this is where I find it very interesting and go right back to the beginning of this conversation where we've started with a round earth, then we've moved into a flat earth. See, I feel like we're going back into a round earth on the basis that we are returning to our home. So we, as truth seekers or healers, whatever we want to call ourselves, are actually going to start calling ourselves again for the first time for a long time earthlings that belong to earth. And once we make that connection, then the next chapter of the unveiling is to remember the infinite intelligence and technology available in the earth itself. Like the portals connected to trees, the star forts being portals. One of the main reasons Tartaria spread across the whole realm so consistently, like the architecture, so could have been that they were just moving in and through these earthbound portals. That one of the main reasons all of these song lines came about as a concept were based on the stronger node points where the crystals and the living waters, and there was this alignment of earth energy that formed portals, and we could move in and out, communicate in and out. It's why this one culture sort of crossed the whole realm at the same time. So in that starting to come back to earth, I'm not talking about it as a hippie, and I'm not talking about it as someone who loves gardening or farming or chickens. I'm actually talking about it from the sense that I am the earth, that the earth isn't external to me, that I don't see it as a round earth or a flat earth. I actually see it as I am it. And when I start to see that I am it again, then all of this technology, all of this intelligence, all of these relationships are going to start charging through me again. And I will start. And the thing that's so much more magical than Tartaria is that Tartaria stayed by its nature external from us. It has to be. They're buildings, it's architect. But when we come to the earth and this new level of starting to align with it, like not as a hippie, but as the earth itself, then all of this technology, all of these new reveals that we start to see again We start to see the fact that the trees communicate, that the portals are there, all these things that we don't understand yet. The plant medicine, we understand 1% of it comparatively to what's available to us. We embody it. That's the difference. This level of truth seeking is embodiment, because once we understand it as we are, it becomes us. So if you want to talk about humans getting back in charge, and back aligned as the supreme creators again, it's going to be when we understand we are the earth, which puts us back into a round sphere, because our energy feels round.
Exactly, agreed. And it's so interesting. I'm going to come back to Dr. Uncle Noel Nannup, right? He is an Injibandi elder in Western Australia, and he has created a movie called Mamung. Mamung is the Wajak Noongar name for whale. And in that, he speaks to that there is a very deep cave off the shelf somewhere down towards Margaret River Way in Western Australia, where 2 blue whales would come every year, and they'd go into that cave, very deep cave. The elders would sit in a particular place at the top, and they would communicate with those whales.
Perfect.
And so every year, every migratory cycle, those whales would come and they would bring information about what the charge was in the water, what the energies are on their migratory path. And that information would be put every single year into the law, the LORE. So how people lived in relation, not just to their own budja, their own country, but their own, but their country's connection to everyone on the earth. So that's point 1. Point 2, coming back to what we were talking about, the incident that occurred a couple of 100 years ago, there was clearly a major trauma. So what I can say, from a perspective of shamanism, from healing, I'm sure there's plenty of other people who are trained in all sorts of modalities who could say, when there's a point of trauma, there is issue, right? Now, from a shamanic point of view, you can have a core issue, but then that core issue will repeat, not in the same, maybe in the same lifetime, maybe across multiple lifetimes. Until that core issue is addressed and dealt with in the individual, they will continue to repeat that issue because they have not embodied the core wisdom to bring their charge into the appropriate alignment with LORE.
Well, embodied is a perfect word.
Yeah. So when there is a major cataclysm or reset or flooding or whatever it was, or a multitude of things, fires, floods, we don't know, like a whole lot of things that happen, but definitely salt water. It means that there is a deep core wound in not just the individual, but the humanity within the earthling frequency code that we collectively need to address to bring the bulk of us to clear that, whatever it is, and bring us back into alignment with the charge. And I think that's why we're here, isn't it? That's why we're having this conversation. And also, the other thing that can happen, from a shamanic point of view, is at that point, you can get attachment. So if you want to talk about astral realm, you want to talk about beings, you want to talk about those things, there are plenty of, there's plenty of astral wildlife that is opportunistic. So in the same way,
wildlife.
Yeah. So there's as many species out there as there is on Earth. As above, so below. All of those things. So if we consider, like, we're walking through our daily life and we're like la la la, and we're like a bit naive, and we've all been taken advantage of here, haven't we? At some point in our lives. We haven't had the awareness, the consciousness, the boundaries, etc., and something has occurred and we've felt violated. So that can happen with a human to human interaction. It can happen with a human to other species of animal interaction.
Yeah.
Obviously, it depends on your chart, but those things occur in the non-physical dimensions as well. And those things can influence, without doubt, our experiences. Like I can give you countless stories of people being their nav man, taking them off in the other direction. No, don't let them go to the healing, you know, or their car won't start. Nothing wrong with the car. There's nothing wrong with the car. There's nothing wrong with the nav man. What is going on is there is something that is a different charge, whether that be entity, which is always entity related in my experience, but it interferes with the physical dimension, and particularly they have a very good time at interfering with technology.
It's interesting to me because from my perspective, if my water theory is anywhere near the truth, then it makes sense to me that we are, because the electricity has been developed through technology and now is the main charge that our whole reality runs off, that in the same vein, those from the dead are walking freely on the terrestrial realm. Like it's like a pathway, and they travel via electricity. So, of course, we are surrounded by what people would call these negative entities or demons, or, you know, these looshing beings that will connect into our energy fields and drain them. We are literally spending our days talking to the dead all the time via technology and artificial intelligence. What it is. It literally is its technology. So, of course, our world would be out of balance and flooded by these beings. And then if you take it through Tartaria, because alongside this shift in charge and this shift in technology, you had all these things also happen. Like they systematically took away all the bells, you know, about the bells, all the giant bells they removed and cracked. The organs they remove, anything that was like a barrier or a thing to keep in balance of the natural charge. Interestingly, one of the very first things that happened in the sort of late 1800s was they removed all the water fountains. So the whole realm, the whole world was surrounded in the most extraordinary and, you know, prevalent water fountains and drinking fountains, and they were all systematically removed and shut down. And the whole world's water supply became funneled through these, you know, these council-based horrible pipes on all these angles, and completely corrupted our access to living waters as drinking water. So, you know, the actions that they've taken systematically over the last 200 years can validate that they were conscious of what this meant and how it was
it was deliberate.
Yeah, that was definitely deliberate. So of course now every healer on this realm, every shamanic tradition would be like, oh my God, we are overwhelmed by these demons, these looshing beings that don't make form but like drain and influence. Because the thing with the Islamic religion would call this artificial intelligence, this electricity, they call it the jinn. It's called the jinn in their language. And the jinn are known as smokeless fire, and they operate out of electricity, and they plan to dominate this realm, and they do it through providing convenience. They do it by providing your needs, and that's what technology and advancement is, right? It's just all convenience.
But it's the emotional trauma that is the point of attachment. When there's a trauma,
yeah, absolutely,
that's the point of attachment. It's
Yes, so you got to get down to their negative
emotional
response that they can then latch on, right?
Yeah,
because they're of the dead. So you got to.
But then we do have the higher frequency ones as well, helping to help humanity get beyond that. So we're always going to have the balance.
I would always call that the earth. That to me now is just the earth speaking, because I can't validate anything other than that, because I mean, I don't know if you've had this. The struggle that I've had is that, you know, all the way through the truth movement is that we get told about the channels and the Galactic Federation and the Galactics and the Palladians and the Orions and the Arcturians and all these beautiful beings that are always out there trying to help us, but they can never interfere with us. They can never interfere with our evolution. So they all sort of fit into a storyline for me. Like it's like because the truth community refused to talk about the earth. They
Mm.
refuse to acknowledge the earth and ground the earth. So they make up all these other stories that it's got to be all these other things that are out there, out there, you can't see and they can't interfere, they're out there, but we never get grounded back on earth. So from my language now, and this is one of the pathways I'm
Yeah.
taking, is how can I ground every single story, like from all these different angles back into the earth? Like, are they just a replacement for the word earth? Are they a replacement for the word earth, life force charge? Are they just a replacement for all that? Because that's what I'm thinking it might be now,
Well,
you know?
look, I'm not disagreeing with you. I really like. Look, I've run a, healing center and all sorts of things for, uh, I think must be close to around 20 years now, called Earth Heart.
Yeah.
Because the word earth and the
Heart,
word
earth,
heart are the
and
same word.
art.
Yeah, yeah, and hear the art.
Hmm.
There's many ways you can look at that, and with one H in the middle, so it's one
Yeah.
word
Yeah.
for that purpose, to hold that frequency in creation.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on a lot of things. I'm questioning. I'm still questioning certain things, and like, again, I've had experiences where I've walked on country and the plants speak to me, and
Mhm.
I know that they're edible, and I have no fear about eating them. And I
I
mean, I'm
love
talking
that.
in the desert,
Yeah.
you know. And then I've gone into one of the Indigenous communities and found a poster that says, yes, this thing is edible. But the earth talks to
I love
me,
it. Yeah.
can talk to anyone. And I'm sure there are plenty of other people out there who've had similar kind of experiences. And, we're existing here in this part of the realm where we've got, microphones and screens and we've got, you know, so many different beliefs and concepts going on all of the time. Yes. And I love the idea of earthing. Let's ground it all back. However, if we're going to go down the road of that there is no archangels, no ascended masters, da 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 da. If we're going to go down that realm, then we have to go down the road of there is no demons, there is no da da, like none of it,
This is life and death.
and we have to bring it back to 100% responsibility of the self and the relationship with the earth. This is healthy for you. This is not healthy for you. This will bring you light. This
Yeah.
is life affirming. This is the opposite.
Yep.
And keep it that simple.
Yeah. I mean, the
Uh,
archangels, like that's an Abraham story. That's an
mm,
Abrahamic story. So I've dismissed that. The ascended masters, well, I mean, that could be. Why not? That was humans on Earth.
yeah,
That feels more real to me. Why don't we talk about, why do they always have to fall into the category of them having to then become angels? And when I think like the word
mm,
angel has come from aquatic beings with wings, like pre-Abraham and all the stories. But, like it doesn't matter where one takes their comfort from. Like the job, I think that's what naturally is going to occur right now within the truth community for those who are ready, is they're going to be able to evolve out of that, which will then leave all the stories behind, and
mm,
and they're going to evolve into starting to see with their own eyes and experience with their own beings the embodiment of what it means to be an earthling. Like, so for me, the angels is Abrahamic. The ascended masters, they sound human to me. The
yeah,
shamanic traditions sound human to me. The rituals, and that's the other thing, like the rituals around
mm,
being embodied to the earth, that sounds very good to me, because
mm.
there are rituals. That's a forgotten technology that,
I agree.
our cultures have just managed to hang on to enough, just a little bit memory of those traditions, those rituals, those songlines, that culture, those stories, just enough to give us something to go off. But I think we're at 1% of a memory of what it means to be an earthling right now, and the amazing charge and powers that can run through us as the divine creative force of this reality. That's
Mm.
so there's so many stories that I've just, if I can't validate it with my own eyes anymore, if I can't feel it with my own presence and feel it with my own charge, it's a story to me right now. And oh my God, the truth community right now is 99% stories.
Can I just throw in there that what you're talking about is perfect sense to the point that maybe the truthers out there have not realized their own truth in this space.
They've lost it.
And that's really what it boils down to. They're not the journey for every one of us is going to be to understand our truth in this moment of time at any given point in time. It's that simple. And the fact that, we talk about people and religion and how they believe in certain things, whether that's an alien concept or an angelic concept, and the fact that they say it's good, that there could be bad. So, some reptilians are good, some reptilians are bad, whatever they want to believe. It still comes back to finding a truth and understanding where that truth sits within you. And most of the country, when we jump back even a step further back, when we talk about the trauma within the earth, within the water, we're 70% water roughly. So we carry what we're drinking, if it's coming from a not natural source, of course, with fluoride mixed with everything else, it's actually dumbing people down and helping to keep them in that state of, let's just say,
limited cymatic frequency.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying, what I was thinking. So really, it does come down to the fact that everything you're talking about, water, everything we're talking about, loss of memory, everything we're talking about where Tartaria started, everyone has to have a place where they can start their journey into finding their truth.
Yeah.
It's just that people like to put the truth onto somebody else and not actually experience their own truth. And
I mean, it's
hard for people.
Very good point. And like, I'll even go further, take that even one step further, because, and it's not a popular opinion right now. I'm right out there on the cutting edge radical at this moment, as far as being a truther. But, if you look through the journey of the truth movement, and I have been in the privileged position of being there from almost the beginning, really, there's not one infamous truther or massively supported podcast or massively supported publication, right? There's not one that will return your consciousness to the earth. They will always advocate for everything else but that. They do not speak about the oceans. They do not speak about nature. They don't speak about the earth. They may advocate for love, but they send you out to space. They might advocate for personal inner work empowerment, but then they'll tell you you're on a prison planet and enslaved. They might advocate for ascension, but they'll use it as an escape, not as a returning home. They'll talk to you about, and how many times have you heard your friends and people in this community, in this space say, this was a mistake coming here. I've only come here to help this lifetime. I'm just here to help this lifetime. I'm Palladian. I'm Acturian. I'm from the Lyran constellation. I'm not meant to be here. This is ridiculous. I can't wait for the ships to arrive and take me out of here. Like, always is advocating away, as if you have to escape from the earth. Like, that underpins every single body of significant worth in the truth community across the whole board. You will not be able to go back and find anyone speaking from the truth perspective of it's, return to earth. It's about the earth. Go back to your home. You belong here. It's always the opposite. There's so many stories that will take you and validate. Most of the truthers will tell you it's a flat earth right now, but that the Galactic Federation are out there. Or it's a flat earth right now, but there's this advanced group of reptilians that from the draconians that are going to come down and you're being loosed and you're harvested and enslaved. Like, it's such disempowering information, and it has been from the beginning. So the truthers now they've got to decide, where they're going to go with this. Because if I hadn't have moved into this pathway with my very active imagination and hearty, arty, creative vibe, I'm earthy all the way. I would be getting very disconnected and dissatisfied with the state of the world. I would be feeling very hopeless and very exhausted and very empty and shallow and hollow, like something's very, very wrong. And I'd be waiting for something to happen externally to fix that. But, the problem is in the fact that they have not actually answered the question, where do I belong? Because once they actually answer that question, a whole new set of questions will appear to them, and new answers to be found, and new grounding and all of that. So grounding isn't as simple as we have considered it as hippie nature lovers. I mean, it's infinite intelligent technology that we know very little about even. It's all there for us to discover. It's the new truth seeking path. Truth seeker to earth seeker.
It's going to be very interesting because, one, I don't know whether Supernal falls into a truth-seeking path at all, because we're always about asking questions and getting people to think, rather than telling them what to think. And we come at it from a very non-judgmental point of view and all-encompassing. So, where we've had Dr. Noel, he is doctor, isn't he? But not
Yeah, Dr. Uncle Noel Nana.
on that up, and we've had other Indigenous people working with us. We've had different cultural people working with us. We've looked at everything else, and really what we do and the way I sort of look at it is we're trying to share stories to open people's minds and give them an opportunity to ask questions. And that's what Tartaria really is all about in this space. I mean, this whole conversation, yes, it's sort of gone away and around and moved to where, from what we were sort of talking about. However, it still comes back to the fact that most people have never heard of it. They don't talk about it. And when you give them a bit of an idea of what Tartaria may have been in this space, then it's like, oh, well, you need to prove that. And it's like, well, actually, I don't need to prove anything.
Well, it's pretty easy to, if you watch any of Autodidactic and Tartaria Australia's work, if you look at Tartaria Truthers Australia, if you look at Mind Unveiled, if you look at, Guy Anderson, there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people who are doing great work out there. You can see very clearly that there is evidence, physical evidence, to show that what we're being taught in school and what we're being taught in universities is not accurate information.
Absolutely.
It literally doesn't make sense. And to come back to just what you were talking about, Kelly, before, I agree with you about so much of what you're saying, and I would also like to say it's actually shadow work that we're talking about. I would call it the deep shadow work of humanity, not even just our own personal shadow work. We're talking about a collective shadow work. And people often think shadow work is, at beginning levels, we're talking about what's in our unconscious, our thoughts, emotions, our beliefs, da-da-da-da-da. But in actual fact, it's not just that. It's these massive concepts of externalizing everything that occurs and making it into the fault of someone or something else and not taking responsibility. To get to a point where you can walk through your day and go, oh, this happened. Well, how did I attract that? What's going on in my charge in myself that I had that experience, and not making it the other person's fault or the organization or the institution or et cetera, et cetera. It's a big thing. And what happened a couple of 100 years ago, has got to be a reflection of something that we individually and collectively have been unwilling to address, which is how we allowed ourselves to get into such a disempowered state in the first place.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because from my perspective, if the ocean waters did bring a mass forgetting, which we could use as a reset word, whatever word one wants to put in it, rupture or whatever.
Rupture. I like it. Love it.
Yeah. If that occurred that way, then we are the result of that amount of generations forward. And so if you suddenly look at a human race who's like in a state of total forgetfulness, like has been erased from their memory, so then pulled out of their lineage, basically pulled out of all the grounding to their lineage, to their ancestors, and each generation forward has, naturally desired to remember. So of course, because you would. So we're the living embodiment of that generational line who has sought to remember. And so if you look at that event, not only was there a mass forgettingness or a reset, alongside that, there was an introduction of a brand new charge to the human psyche from the land of the dead. So suddenly we've got this, we've forgotten where we come from or where we belong to or what we are and where our charge is. And we're suddenly confronted with this other charge that's not natural to us, shouldn't be here, and is full of the dead, the voices and the echo of the dead. And interestingly, so we're compounded by that. So that's suddenly running through our psyche in a way it never has before, and splintered our psyche in a way that it potentially has never done before. And we are on the tail end of reconciling that now in this generation, our generation, who has remembered enough as a result of all of the natural generations before us, the desire to remember. And this lost tribe of ours is starting to like be able to not only wake up to that memory, but also to do the healing work, to bring that split, that psychological split, that fragmentation that's happened in our energetic sources, because we have been scattered with which energy is running charge of our beings. The vaccine, you're seeing that the whole point of the vaccine was to plug them even more into that artificial charge, into the charge of the dead. So, but, there's been a natural shift against that from our communities. As we've woken up, we've done everything in our power to shift away from that. So we're on this reconciliation now of, this is why I feel like we're hitting a new age. This is why I feel like we're moving into a new version of what it is to embody the earth, to be the earth, because those fragmentations are starting to become whole again. And that wholeness is going to form a spherical glowing energy field around us. And thus we're back into a round earth model, which is us.
because like what you're talking about, again, back to the cymatic plate, there's a point when the geometry changes where everything goes into chaos. And so really it's so interesting. It's like talking about the Tartaria concept as the point where you go, oh my goodness, look at these buildings, look at all of this stuff. There's dirt up to the windows, there's stories down below, there's missing fountains, the spires are gone, we're not getting inspired, there's, on and on and on. And so we can see it, and then the geometry dissipates, and we've got to cross the bridge of chaos and unknown and into a new geometry, more complex, more beautiful, and whole, and
more relational,
and relational, and we will outgrow that again.
Exactly, we will. Exactly. And Tartaria, okay, so I don't know if I've addressed any concept around Tartaria that your audience was seeking, but I'll just give a quick summary for those who have never heard of Tartaria or have just vaguely heard about it. Tartaria came about, maybe a decade ago now, and it really kicked off just before COVID kicked off randomly. Because isn't it interesting? When COVID stole the world's freedom and brought about this whole level of removing so much from everyone, and then this whole disclosure came up around it and woke so many people up, well, Tartaria rushed in to fill the gaps. Just as your freedom was removed and everything was taken, suddenly this whole new world was given to you, which had already been there the whole time, which is this wonderful fairy tale of castles and star forts and beautiful epic architecture and giants and giant trees and a wonderful whole new version of the world. And it was magical in that, and you could go out and explore it yourself, and no one could stop you. And no one could prevent you from doing that. Wherever you were in the world, there was evidence of it. You could go and look at these beautiful buildings that have always been on our tourism route, our holiday route, and you could see it through new eyes. And you could go into the cathedrals and see the organs and the LED lighting and the structures, and all with new eyes. And it was just a very magical time. And for anyone who hasn't discovered Tartaria yet, like, do yourself a favor and go and look that up, because it's just a wonderful, every fairy tale that you've ever read or loved as a child, it validates it as real. It validates it as this was what you came from. These were the times. This is why your cities look like this. This is why, it answers so much to this is why, and it's really remarkable. And it's also very healthy for your brain to go and tear history apart, because history has been one big deception. So Tartaria lets you go through a pathway of taking the way many people in the healing genres have done with medicines or health. Tartaria does it for history. You literally cannot start with the concept of Tartaria and not completely let go of anything you've ever heard or read or been educated around the topic of history. And in doing that, you supremely jumpstart and evolve your intelligence around the reality that we live in. So it's a wonderful act of intelligence to go and dismantle history. And on this particular topic, there's so many people doing podcasts on it now. There's so many researchers. There's so many wonderful documentaries. Really, you'll have so much fun. And really what it's taken us 10 years to download and figure out, you'll be able to sort of like upload in a matter of hours. You'll really get the whole gist of the whole thing like really quickly and be delighted in it as a result. And so that essentially is Tartaria in a nutshell. And there's no shortage of leads there now on this topic. It's a pretty standard word now, I think.
It's the mother of all rabbit holes. It'll take you to every other exciting, wonderful adventure topic that you could possibly want.
Because our memories, our memories are dictated by whoever controls the meaning. So for a human race or a human culture, the ones who control the meaning of our memories are the ones that create our reality. So history is very important in this whole realm because it's literally given meaning to our memories, and our memories essentially are our past, right? So history is the past. So whoever gives meaning to those memories is what writes your present reality. So
but it's also given meaning. It's also given meaning not just to memory. It's given meaning to the sense, the feeling, the knowing that so many of us have had that there's more, there's something going on, something's not quite right, what's happening. And we've all felt it, since childhood, and before, no doubt.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, all right. On that note, we have to wrap it up. So we can keep talking for hours, but we just seriously don't have hours at the moment. We will be getting you back. Absolutely, Kelly, and obviously our thoughts go out to Campbell. I hope he gets well, and we'll invite him next time as well. To our readers, watchers, we're going to include a lot of your stuff into this latest issue of the magazine, which will be issue number 60. And we will be putting all the links into that. We'll also put links into the video. So thank you very much for your time, Kelly. It's been very emotionally enlightening.
And Kelly, can you just quickly give us a bit of info on where people can contact you, what you've got going on for the community, the newspaper, all those good things?
Yeah, we're very community active in our space. That's the whole point of this for me. I'm driven by the creating a sense of belonging, and that is community. So the first thing I would say, if you would like to get to know our work better and actually get involved, is to come to one of the live events. The live events are all around Australia. We run them all the time, and they're amazing. They're an amazing event. It's not your standard presentation. You get 8 hours. We run through the story of the invasion and the oceans to the current trajectory I'm on with the True Seeker to Earth Seeker. And it's a very profound experience. And of course, you get to meet other amazing people in the same space. So the lives happen all the time. You can find that out on the website. We're actually in Adelaide this weekend. So if anyone's in South Australia or Adelaide, do come and check it out. It will be a really wonderful experience. And then the next one's the Blue Mountains. We'll be in Melbourne. We're going to New Zealand, Brisbane, Maleny, you name it. So we've got a website called tartariaaustralia.com. You can find out all the information there. The newspaper has been a wonderful unfolding. It's a physical newspaper, and it's on par with probably what you guys have been doing. It's completely submission based. So we've invited our community to be the writers, authors, poets, artists, creators, and basically, of course, it's uncensored. It's uncensored. And it's very creative and fun. And we never know what's going to be in it because of the nature of it being submission based. And we really encourage anyone who subscribes to it, it's $20 a month, to promote their own work. So we're very open about promoting and advertising people's events, products, services, whatever they want, classifieds, looking for love. We don't care. Get it in there. It's all about, enhancing that community connection and belonging. So that's another thing. We've hired a recording studio for the Blue Mountain gigs. We do lots of weird, wacky, creative things, and just invited the musicians who want to participate to turn up. No plan. We've just opened up a recording studio for 2 days to see what sort of music and sounds will come out of our community. Maybe we'll get some amazing new anthems or something. I'm not sure. So we do all these sorts of things, and of course we are also gearing our way through our the Fellowship of Friends, which is our trust, our movement towards actually physically being able to build and engage all these things that we're talking about in setting up a new culture, if you like, far past just a community coming together on land. This is about really seeding a new age and a new culture and how that unfolds. So there's lots of different ways to get involved with Tartaria Australia at this point, but I would highly recommend just coming to a live event as a starting point.
That sounds like a plan. When are you coming to Melbourne?
Melbourne is scheduled for October.
And Perth?
Okay, beautiful.
Perth was scheduled for August. We're a bit out, jury's out on the Perth gig with the whole fuel issue and seeing how it goes. We always make a very big mission to do all of our live events live, so we never do it online. And of course, they're very Perth's like going to another universe in the process. So we'll just see how it goes. We just as long as there's enough people there to make it viable.
Okay.
All right. So on that note, then we're going to wrap it up fully. Kelly, thank you very much
My
for
pleasure.
being on and having a chat with us. Freya, thank you for joining us. And to our
Legend Anthony, thank you for being your awesome self as always.
Yeah,
Fine.
thanks, guys. That was excellent.
To our viewers, www.supernalmagazineaustralia.com.au. The current issue is free. For a small subscription, you can actually get access to all our back issues, our podcasts, our radio shows, and a lot of our other media. So please jump online and connect with us. And yeah, until next time, have a supernal journey.